hear me if I yell really loud? And I'll hold the mic? So welcome back. Stoked to have everybody here and really excited. We have three amazing speakers for the afternoon. I wanted to remind everybody that we have a cocktail hour after this at Brooks and Brown at 4 p.m. DJ Double Dip is going to be spinning some funky tunes, is what he told me. And then we have a shade spot on the patio by the river, so if there will be shade. And then we also are providing some light appetizers, and then the first 10 people who get there get a free drink on us. Yeah, so use your running shoes. Okay, then really quick, I'm just going to jump right into introing our next speaker, who's a UM alum with an impressive business development background. Currently, he's at the forefront of something the Missoulian dubs as high-tech farming to treat wastewater. Previously, he created a widely successful technology and infrastructure company. So welcome the CEO of Clearest Water Recovery, Jordan Lynn.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me all right? Is the speaker on? So I'll talk loud. Can everybody hear me at this level? Okay. So I'm not checking my phone. These are actually some notes. So I just want to be aware of that before we get started. I wrote down a few things, but as was mentioned, Jordan Lynn, third generation Montana, grew up here, went to the University of Montana Business School, graduated with a degree in finance, ultimately made my way to Portland, Oregon, and then kind of ran up and down the Silicon Valley in my early 20s, learning a little bit about how to fund businesses and take an idea and turn it into a real company with real revenues and customers and all the challenges and problems that come with doing that. I am the CEO of Clearest Water Recovery, part of the founding group of that. It's a business that started 8 years ago. We've raised $8 million in investment for that business and just recently signed onto a $24 million project down in Salt Lake City as kind of our first flagship commercial system. So we're really excited about the growth opportunity. We've been working our tails off for the last 7.5 years. It's a business that is incredibly transformative in a civil infrastructure space. There is nothing more important to humanity than clean water. And in the journey that we've been on, we took the opportunity to learn from Mother Nature on how she tackles the problem of dirty water and contaminated water. And we built that into a mechanical and biological process controlled by information systems that allow us to produce high quality water, some of the best in the industry in terms of municipal and industrial water treatment. Second, we recycle carbon dioxide, and notice I didn't say sequester. We say recycle. Plants, which is what we use in our biological treatment process, take in carbon dioxide and they give back oxygen. So we're not only recycling carbon dioxide in this process, but we're oxygenating those waste streams, which helps the aquatic systems that those discharge into. And then finally, we produce a co-product. Traditional systems in wastewater use chemicals, and you end up with a chemical sludge. That sludge goes into our landfills. Those landfills leach into our water systems. So it's a transformative and disruptive technology. We're proud to be in the state of Montana. We're proud to be in Missoula, Montana. This is a place I wanted to build something that was lasting and bigger than all of us, and that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to give you the context of that by having you watch a quick video. It's just 3.5 minutes. And then I'll give you some of my experience and some of the mistakes I made in becoming and being an entrepreneur. Go ahead.
Water is humanity's most vital natural resource. It fuels economies, societies, and life itself. Continued population growth and rapid industrialization threaten the water supply. Today, there is not enough clean, usable water to satisfy demand. Contamination caused by excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus saturate our waterways and further decrease fresh water supply. As a biological water treatment platform, the Clearis technology is highly modular and scalable, providing a sustainable approach to cleaning water. It is a bolt-on system that can attach to existing water treatment infrastructure. The patented Clearis system applies traditional biological wastewater treatment principle. The result of the process is clean, recovered water. The Clearis system contains 3 core phases: the blend phase, the nutrient recovery phase, and the separation phase. In the blend phase, contaminated wastewater and CO2 are mixed with a proprietary blend of algae and other biological organisms to create a biodiverse mixture flow. In the nutrient recovery phase, the mixture flow leaves the blend tank and enters our vertical pond system. The greenhouse structure and light source provide light for year-round, 24/7 nutrient recovery. The vertical pond system optimizes biological activity and photosynthesis. Inside, the algae metabolize nitrogen, phosphorus, CO2, and other unwanted contaminants and rapidly divide. The dense algae culture takes over and biologically cleans the water, releasing oxygen. The vertical pond system is self-cleaning and runs continuously with zero waste. In the separation phase, advanced microfiltration separates the mixture flow into 2 different streams, the clean water stream and the recycle stream. The recycle stream sends healthy, return-activated algae and other biological organisms to reseed new wastewater entering the blend tank, starting the treatment cycle over again. Excess waste-activated algae is harvested from the treatment process. The Clearis treatment process has been shown to reduce phosphorus by a factor of 10 times and nitrogen by a factor of 3 times. The clean water stream is now free of harmful levels of contaminants. It can be safely discharged or sent back for reuse in upstream plant operations. The Clearis system cleans water sustainably. The Clearis technology is administered by a state-of-the-art information management system, allowing for low-cost monitoring and accessibility from anywhere. The automated controls regulate the relationship between the biology and the mechanical processes to maximize the treatment impact. The Clearis system is highly modular, scalable, and flexible to meet a variety of water quality needs. Unlike traditional mechanical and chemical technologies, the Clearis system produces zero waste and has a competitive total cost of ownership.
Thank you. Is that on? Can you hear me all right? Okay. I'm not going to spend that much time talking about Clearis water recovery. I am sticking around afterwards if you guys want to learn more about it. I thought it would be more valuable to spend a little bit of time giving you some of my history and experience in terms of being an entrepreneur. I'm also an angel investor. I'm a partner in a group called BrightMech Partners. We invest in early stage and growth companies. So our approach is to invest at an early stage in growth companies with big ideas. And when we talk about big ideas, we're talking about things that have national and international global impact and can be disruptive to an industry or a traditional business channel. So we're really excited about that. Typically, out of Brightmark, then we place our own talent inside of the businesses. So Clearis is one of our portfolio companies, and therefore I am in the business every day as a CEO. So just some experiences and learning that I went through as an entrepreneur. And by the way, it's a painful world, right? I mean, as most of you know, business is hard. It's really hard. And I think it's getting harder as, mainstream becomes digital and communications are 24/7. the boundaries of traditional business have started to break down. So it's getting harder and harder to understand where some boundaries end and where others start. So what excites me about this business, Clarus, is that it's the first company I've ever been involved in, either from a leadership, management, or investment perspective, that's bringing social, political, economic, and regulatory people together. First time in history I've ever seen that. Nobody argues about the value of clean water. Everybody believes that water is the basis of economies, it's the basis of life. It drives financials, economics, recreation, and so it's been really fun for us to be in a business that started here in Montana with local Montana talent and go around the country, North America, and around the world and talk about something that has the ability to unite people instead of divide them, which seems to be kind of the status quo lately. So that's what's exciting about it. Just my background is I've learned by making a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes early, and I made them fast. In our business, we encourage people to make mistakes. We just want to make sure that they're new mistakes, right? Can't make the same mistake over and over. But mistakes are part of the learning process, and I made lots of mistakes very early in my career, and I just etch them in the back of my mind. I carry notebooks around and say, okay, well, yeah, chalk that up to tuition for life. I probably shouldn't make that mistake ever again. So encourage you and your people as you're thinking about innovation and entrepreneurship and building companies that you empower your people to make mistakes. Let them know that you're going to support them in taking those risks, and then in return for that, you will be rewarded by their ability to make new mistakes and grow your business. You know, early in my career, I thought I knew a lot because I went to business school and I learned about kind of the fundamentals of finance and accounting and marketing and sales and all those fundamentals, HR. But what I realized when I got into my first real job was I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't know how emotional intelligence played such a massive role in success or failure. I didn't realize that one's ability to show empathy or hold somebody accountable or set an expectation that had clear deliverables was so critical. I was working on, yeah, I could run discount cash flow models, and I had all this technical know-how coming out of school, and then I landed flat on my face because I realized, business at a minimum, you got to have those things, but if you don't have an emotional intelligence level in your organization or within yourself, it's really hard to grow. You got to be able to build other people. And one of the things that we're focused on with Clarus, and I mentioned it earlier, is we want to build something that's bigger than ourselves. We don't have egos in our business. Egos are checked at the door. Doesn't matter what your position is, doesn't matter what your title is. You come in every day and you give the best you have and you challenge the status quo, and it makes for a really exciting and fun environment. So that's another piece of advice that I would have. On people management, when I first graduated from college, it was the mid-90s. The tech boom was going crazy. If you had .com in your name, you were funded. Forget traditional business models, forget VC pitches, forget learning how to pitch a business. If you just said .com when you walked in, you got a check. It happened to me. Got $1 million check. Didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to spend it. But the interesting thing was that when we were at that stage, you think that hiring fast is the thing to do, because one question that people always ask you is, oh, how many employees do you have? And while we all want to build an economic engine, that economic engine has to be sustainable. And if you outpace the cash you have in your business, then you can't hire people or have any more people. But everybody wants you to believe that more people is better, bigger is better. So we had to reverse the model, and we've done that in the last 10 years of the businesses we're investing in, which is we actually hire slow and we fire fast. So that, I don't mean that in a horrible, we're horrible people, but we're really careful about the people we hire. And we hire for fit. not for their technical skill. We hire for fit. We need people who match our values. We need people who are going to do the right thing. We need people who live our values, not just, we don't have a set of values that we hang on the wall and placate those. We're in the business every day. When people are making decisions, they're making value-based decisions, not just technical decisions. So we'll be in meetings and somebody will say, well, what do our values tell us to do? Maybe that's a better way to think about this than just to look at the technical data. So it's really critical that as you build these businesses, and my experience has been that you've got to be very, very careful about the people. My first company that we started when I left the business school became accidentally a really big concept in the infrastructure, IT infrastructure space. But I'll tell you, we had the wrong people in the wrong jobs doing the wrong things. But because we're good Montana people and we care about each other and we look each other in the eye and we're honest, we had a hard time getting rid of those people. We should have moved on long, long before we did, and it cost our shareholders significantly. We learned in that process that, and I learned in that process that as entrepreneurs and as building businesses, you have to take either money in the form of debt or equity to get things going. Sometimes you can fund it and bootstrap it out of your own pocket. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to your shareholders. I tell our people this all the time. As CEO, I have a responsibility to produce a return for our shareholders. And at times, I will make decisions that are in the best interest of the company as a whole, and that will be in direct conflict with you as an individual. It's not because I don't care about you, and it's not because I haven't thought about that. It's because my obligation and fiduciary responsibility is to the business and the shareholders. So the people management thing becomes a massive and challenging element to all of these things. The other thing that I've learned in investing and running these crazy entrepreneurial big idea companies is that lots of people have good ideas. And I don't consider having an idea associated with entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurs are people who see an idea, understand a market pain point, and connect the dots. They're executors. They're people who understand how to look at the market and say, are we a solution to a problem that exists, or are we a solution looking for a problem? I've been part of investing in and running businesses that are looking for a problem. And let me tell you, it's massively expensive to try to find a problem. Don't be that company. Understand the value proposition you're offering and what the pain in the market is. And when I'm talking about pain, here's how you figure out whether there's pain. You take your product to your customer and you ask them to pay you. And if they do, there's pain or there's need. If they say no, but I'll test it for free, run like hell. It happens all the time. And entrepreneurs, because we get connected to our ideas and our widgets and our things and our services, somebody tells us, yeah, take a look at that, and we get excited and the train left the station for us already. You got to slow down to speed up. Slow down in those instances and look at it and say, this person must not have a need or a pain point sharp enough to pay me for it. And if that's the case, you either got to find a new value proposition, you got to find a new customer, you got to find a new segment, or maybe your idea just isn't economical. The cool thing about Clearis is it's an idea around sustainability, but one of the core concepts of our business is had to be economical. Nothing can be sustainable without the ability for it to be economical and profitable. And it's rare, in my experience, whether you're looking at the energy sector or the water sector or any of these, where massive incentives have gone into sustainable and environmentally friendly efforts, that you find technology that without subsidy competes or has an economic advantage over petrochemical. And we do. So it's really exciting for us to get into conversations with investors and markets and customers when they're looking at alternatives to our technology to sit side by side with petrochemical-based solutions and say, on a 20-year total cost of ownership, we're 10 to 15% minimum better. And when you're spending $20 or $30 million, those are, I mean, that's pretty significant, right? So we're really excited about that. Excited to continue to grow our business in the state of Montana. We love it here. We're not going anywhere. We're going to try to build a global company in our own backyard. The things we need most are talent. We need people who have vision and a skill set to go beyond traditional boundaries. We don't think about our market as Montana-based, although certainly we want to do business in the state of Montana. We think about it globally. Just had some meetings this morning with some folks out of Japan. The Asian market's massive for us. We're working on hiring an investment banker that will also introduce us to partners to help us on an international basis. So things are really looking up, and it's our team, it's the collective IQ. I think Montana has offered us, what we knew when we wanted to be here, which is, you always hear it, incredible work ethic, honest people, and risk takers, right? I mean, there's only 1 million people. We have to take risks, and we have to grow the economy, and we've got to work together to do that. And so that's my story. Thank you for having me. I'll be sticking around afterwards if anybody has questions or wants to connect.
Is this working now? I can belt it out with the best of them though. One term that I have not heard used before is vertical pond, which that illustration was pretty sweet. Thank you, Jordan. That was amazing and clearest. I'm so hopeful that that's going to take over the world, and what a cool thing to unite us rather than divide us. Our next speaker is an entrepreneur, dancer, and grounded spirit. She built a fitness program that's now in 23 states and 3 countries outside of the US. Her recent blog post entitled, "Why I Think Taking Time for Yourself is BS," discusses societal norms and how self-care is not something that should be kept separate from our life. It is our life. Please welcome Oola Fitness CEO and founder, Kaylee Lindner.
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I am grateful and honored to be a part of this event. As I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today and how my story could be relevant to you or matter or create any meaning in your life and your stories, I keep coming back to this. That now more than ever, it is so important to bring what makes you human into the work that you do. So with technology becoming an ever-increasing role in our lives and in our work, and with the way that Americans kind of move about our worlds, and Montanans especially, just because of our geographical big distance, we get in our car, we drive to work, we drive back, we pull into the garage, we close the garage door, and we are living in our single family dwellings. Then we go into our beds with a pint of ice cream and lay there looking at beautiful photos of Instagram, thinking that everybody else has better, more perfect, more beautiful lives than we do. And what happens is we feel isolated and we feel lonely. And right now, Americans are suffering from a chronic epidemic of social isolation. And Americans are feeling lonely. And so I feel like now more than ever, it is so needed and it's so important that you don't hide what makes you human, but you bring your humanness into your work. So I'm going to share my story about how I went from teaching a dance fitness class to creating and building a community of thousands of people who have, many of which said that ULA has changed their life. So in 2010, so almost 7 years ago now, I started ULA in Missoula. That's where the name came from. And I began teaching classes, and it was a really fun dance workout class. It was great. It was really fun, and I had trained and certified in different fitness formats and programs. I grew up dancing myself, and I just really couldn't find the class that I wanted to either take or teach. And so I basically had to say, well, Julie, if you're going to be this picky, then you're just going to have to make it. And so I did. I created ULA and started teaching classes. Things were going really well. And fast forward, like Morgan said, we have thousands of participants now, hundreds of instructors, a studio in Missoula, a studio in Bozeman, an online studio where people can take classes from anywhere. And in the last 3 years, we've been hosting retreats in Mexico as well as the US. And that is part of where I'm really excited and interested in continuing to go with ULA, is these more in-depth experiences with people beyond the kind of confinement of a class. So fast forward a little bit to 2013. And I was teaching, we had grown, we had instructors. I was pregnant, and I made it through the first trimester, totally great, feeling good, everything was going really well. And then I entered into my second trimester, and I developed placental abruption, which means that's when the placenta separates itself from the uterine lining. And things started getting complicated. At about 5.5 months pregnant, so right around 22 weeks pregnant, my body went into preterm labor. I had run out of amniotic fluid. And at 24 weeks, they say that the baby can survive outside of the body. So I was 2 weeks shy from this kind of goal point. And I went into preterm labor, I went to the hospital, and I delivered my baby, who didn't make it. And got to hold him and study him and love him, and then there comes a point that you have to give him away and say goodbye. And it's brutal. Like, it is brutal. And it's so, at least for me, it was shattering. And I broke. And looking back, I realized that I broke open. And at the time, I felt totally broken. And I look back and I see that. I see that moment as a huge, huge opening for a life that I didn't necessarily want, but that completely changed me and also changed ULA. And so I didn't know that people lost babies after that first trimester. I really thought that if you got through the first 3 months, you were kind of good to go. So I felt really alone in my pain and in my suffering. And I felt ashamed, and I felt like my body, which I use every day for work, I felt like my body had betrayed me, and I felt like my body had betrayed my baby. And I didn't know what to do with this because people don't really talk about it because it's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. But I didn't know what else to do but to share in my emotions, in my situation. And so I began talking about it on social media. and I began dancing to my pain, to hula. So what started as a fun workout class and dancing and having a great time, well, then I began to introduce sad songs. And I began dancing to these sad songs. And I remember the first few months after it happened, I could go an entire song without saying a word, without even looking up, just allowing myself to cry with a class behind me. And when I finally looked up, I noticed that people were crying with me. And they weren't necessarily crying for me or for my story. Some of them were. But what I realized is that my sadness and my pain created a beautiful space for other people to heal. And in that moment, I realized that what I was doing and what we were doing with Ula could be so much more than just a fun workout. And so as Ula has then evolved throughout the years, and two little pauses, Ula is still fun. We don't just cry the whole time, okay? We still have a great time to pibble and all of that. But there is the mind-body connection that wasn't there originally. Second of all, I think my bio somewhere said that I, in my free time, play with my two dogs, which unfortunately both also have died. I have a new dog and two daughters. So it's one's 4 months and one's almost 3. So anyways, things have gone up. But in that moment, I realized, okay, this can be something more. So fast forward to kind of where we are now, you can walk into an Ula class and you will notice that there are people of all ages, all stages of life, all of that, and everyone is kind of dancing to their story. And the way an Ula class is set up now, which I have just kind of learned as I've gone, is we take our class on an emotional journey, because you don't know what people need. You don't know what people have gone through that day. You don't know what people are experiencing in their life. So maybe you have somebody who has a very stressful job and they need to come to Ula and feel like a total carefree goofball for a few songs, or even just 3 minutes, even if there's just one song that makes them feel totally silly. They need that. Let's say that there's somebody who has suffered from body issues their entire life, and they can come into this space and they are allowed to touch themselves and to feel sexy. Maybe you have somebody who has been told that their voice doesn't matter, or they need to be quiet, or that they shouldn't take up so much space, and you give them this place to be big and to be loud and to take up space and to make just to fully embody themselves in that space, and this healing starts to happen. And it's really interesting, because I feel like the fitness industry is tricky, and we don't fit in the fitness industry, and we don't fit, we're in this kind of interesting space, Ula is, but the fitness industry kind of tells you, like, you're going to lose this many pounds, or you're going to lose this many inches, and then you're going to feel great. You're going to gain confidence, you're going to feel sexy, your relationships will improve, all these things. Okay, so what happens when you gain those 5-10 pounds back? That's dangerous, that's destructive, and then you go down that rabbit hole again. So what Ula tries to do is say, let's take it past this surface level, this purely physical space, and let's go a little bit deeper to what is underneath, and let's bring that humanness to the forefront. Let's connect on that human level. Let's create a community from that human space. Now, if our bodies change, awesome, because it feels amazing to feel lighter, both emotionally and physically. It feels good to get rid of what is no longer serving you. But it's really amazing to see how, once we kind of said, okay, I am wide open right now, this is me, this is what I'm going through, this is me in all of my messy humanness, for people to then say, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. You don't even have to understand or know each other's stories to feel how it feels to be in a space and to share that energy. And so it's about a year and a half ago, I met a woman named Tracy Helen, and she's a professor, and she also had miscarriages. I actually had 2 miscarriages between my daughters, and she had miscarriages as well between her son, and she's gonna have a baby girl any day now, so that's exciting. She said, okay, well, what is this? What is this that's happening? What's going on in ULA? And so she decided to do a study. And so we have participants that are still ongoing with the study. We have some who have finished the study. So I've got data and results about kind of their experience with ULA, but it is ongoing. We're going to start another round in the fall. So if anyone is interested, find me. And if anyone is interested in more detail about the data I'm about to show, you can contact me as well. I can get you in touch with Tracy or her assistant, Hayden. But after 3 months, so we have participants come and they do ULA for 12 weeks consecutively. And so this is, you can see, starting at the beginning at their screening and watching to week 12, 13, the anxiety that some of our participants have felt has been reduced pretty significantly through consistent ULA. Do you see where it spikes back up? That is the week that we require them to take off from ULA. So it comes back up, that week that they're not allowed to take classes. I shouldn't say we, Tracy does, and Hayden. I think it's mean, but they do it. Same thing with depression. So depression levels are drastically reducing. Their week off, shoot right back up. Happiness consistently increases, and that's a pretty dramatic drop for their week off. It works. And I rack my brain all the time trying to figure out why this works, but I truly believe it's because ULA creates a space that says you are safe to come here in all of your humanness. And the body is basically just a tool for us to get to this place. The music is incredibly powerful and what drives the entire thing. And then we use our body to help move some of those emotions and some of the stories or lies that we've been telling ourselves or trauma that we've experienced or whatever it may be. We use the body to move it through. And then this really cool healing takes place. And I think that for so many women especially, I'm just going to speak about it from a woman's standpoint, we consider fitness a place that we're encouraged to get smaller. That's like what most fitness companies promote is, how much smaller am I going to get? But ULA invites you to get bigger, to own all of your humanness, and to take up space and to grow into your potential. And does everybody want that from their workout? Absolutely not. I've lost many clients because they don't want to do the work in their workout, and I respect that. And I totally get it. But for as many people who don't want that from their workout, there are just as many, and in my experience, more who want that and who need that. And so I think it's really important to remember the human factor, keep bringing it into the work that you're doing. And don't be, it's scary, it's really scary, but know that whatever it is, whatever the work is that you're doing, I really believe it could be any service, it could be any product, whatever the work is that you're doing, if you're passionate about it and you believe in it and you're approaching it from an authentic place, you have the ability to change the world. Maybe not the entire world, but maybe somebody's world, maybe your own world. And so for me, I had to make business decisions along the way. We were just talking about this in the breakout. I had to make decisions along the way that said I would rather have fewer people be more affected and influenced by this than have a bigger business that kind of just keeps it on the surface level with people. So I guess if I could say anything to all of you who are already working or who have a dream or who have something that you want to do, you are needed. You are needed. You will attract the people who need what you are offering. So keep bringing yourself to your work. Keep sharing yourself. Keep sharing your story. You don't know who needs to hear it. You don't know who your story will give permission for them to share their story too. And in a day when we're feeling lonely, when Americans are suffering from loneliness, like, oh, that makes me sad. So we can change that, and we can use technology in healthy ways, absolutely, but keep bringing your humanness. Do not hide from what makes you human. Thank you.
That was amazing. I definitely teared up. I don't know about any of you, but I'm so grateful to Kaylee for sharing that. That takes a lot of bravery to share that personal of a story with all of you. And I think that was really, really great. And really fascinating about the data of Lula and where that's going, and how a theme that is I wouldn't have anticipated has broken through today is movement and our bodies and our minds and our resilience. And I would have never anticipated that would have come up today. But I'm grateful it has. It's really incredible. So thank you. I just want to give Kaylee another round of applause for sharing that story. So quickly, I want to introduce our next speaker and our final speaker of LastFest Conference 2017. He comes to us from Portland, Oregon, and aside from just a few things that he's up to, like sitting on the board for the Grammys, being a member of the Guild of Music Supervisors, and an active member of the Entrepreneurs Association and Organization in Portland, this speaker still makes time to push boundaries of organizational structure and marketing. A clear music enthusiast, I can't wait to welcome the CEO and co-founder of Marmoset Music, Ryan Wines.
Hi. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm here today to talk about something that, and this has different names at times, but I'm calling the burnout epidemic. It's something that I've experienced firsthand through real experiences, and I find it particularly prevalent in some very specific industries. These are the ones that I've been able to witness it and see it, experience it myself. Creative industries, software, emerging technologies, small business and startups. And what I'm essentially talking about is the myth of just burning yourself to the bone. Just working is going to be the way to solve it. As a startup owner, I experienced that a little bit the first couple of years of my business. I've been for 7 years, and that is, I knew in the beginning that we were going to have to work really, really hard, and I was going to put in some long nights and some long hours, in the beginning especially. But I told myself right up front that I was not going to do that forever, that there was a time when I needed something that was going to be healthy and sustainable. And I was willing to give on that a little bit when I knew there was an endpoint. And the problem in these industries, it's the expectation. It's almost as if there's a badge of honor that says, if you work your ass off and you just work really hard and put in long hours, that you'll be rewarded, or there's something noble about that. And I guess maybe if you're trying to cure cancer, or if you're trying to solve our homeless problems in our country, or something along those lines, those extra hours and the extra hard work is probably worth it. However, most of the situations that I experience and I see aren't that noble. Therefore, consumer endeavors, commercial endeavors, things that are not serving the world in the most noble ways. So working hard in my experience, does not mean good work. In fact, I find the two at odds a lot. Putting in long hours, working yourself to the bone, does not mean you're going to have a good outcome. In fact, if you think about the opposite, if you don't work as much but actually care for yourself a lot and provide a lot of healthy opportunities for yourself, I found that the quality of the work usually ends up being a lot better. Same thing with efficiency and productivity. And this is something I actually recently learned while doing a continuing education course at Wharton School of Business in Philadelphia, is studying productivity and actually finding sweet spots in lean manufacturing and lean approaches to work that essentially prove that there's a point when you put in too many hours and work too hard that productivity and quality goes down. And let's just be honest. Some people are wired in a weird way where maybe they just get a lot out of working and it's their happy place, but most of the time, it's probably not. And I think that there's a lot of other places you can find happiness besides just working hard. And so I believe hard work, like really working hard, is overrated. I think there are times when you're on a timeline or there's a certain project that needs to be done where that little extra elbow grease and a little extra hard work can be helpful. But in small spurts, not all the time. This is, does anybody know what this place is? No? Okay. Yes, yeah, this is a newly opened world global headquarters for Apple in Palo Alto. Kind of looks like a spaceship. What's fascinating about Apple is the average turnover for their employees is 1 year. Last I checked, the last data I found was a year or two old. And it's fascinating to me that in a place like Apple, that they're burning through people at such a rapid rate. And you go down the road just a little bit to Google, they're at 2 years. Amazon, I believe, is at a year. Facebook is at a year or two. Nike, which I'm from Portland, Oregon, and Nike is like very high revered, high regarded company in the Pacific Northwest and globally. 3 years at Nike is the average turnover or tenure for an employee. Really fascinates me why somebody would turn so fast until you get to the inside and work with some of those people and get to know some of them as I do, and know that the expectations being put on people are just ridiculous. They're being pushed, asked to work extra hours, weekends, evenings. I'd say most of the people I know at those companies I just listed, and I know quite a few, are usually working 10 to 12-hour days and often work on weekends. They're not being compensated extra for any of that. Not that the extra compensation would make it better. Another little fascinating fact that I'll point out is I looked up Walmart, McDonald's, and Halliburton, all three of those companies. Their spaceship looks a little different to me, but the average tenure and turnover at those companies is actually higher than those I listed previously, which is one of those things that kind of makes you stop and wonder what's going on. This is a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. His name is Michael. He had a career in the creative industry. So he's from the Miami area, went to school, I believe, in the University of Florida, where he was in an indie avant-garde hip-hop group. He is the producer of the group, and really, really talented. And then he got in the creative industry and started working for Crispin Porter Bogosky in Miami, and they're also in Boulder and in LA. And started getting his career going there as an integrated producer or a digital producer and of multimedia. And then eventually made the jump to White & Kennedy in Portland, Oregon, which is one of the most highly regarded uber creative agencies in that realm. At White & Kennedy, he was there for about 6 or 7 years. He's known for doing really good work. He's a real sweetheart, the kindest spirit I've ever met in that industry. And as I got to know him and hang out with him and we became friends, what I learned was he hated his career. He hated and loathed his career. And not necessarily White & Kennedy specifically, but really just the expectations in that work. And it's all over. And so as he was there longer, he started becoming really bummed out. The work was actually killing him in many ways. He didn't like the person he was becoming. He didn't like the thoughts that were in his head. He missed seeing his wife and his children. And finally, he hit the eject button recently and started a record store in North Portland. He and his wife, who's from Venezuela, Michael and Maya, and their 2 children, Mo and Miles, all spend their days at this record store called Specs in Kenton. And he's the happiest guy I know right now. But he hit the eject button and was taking a huge risk because he knew that industry and the expectations in the creative and tech and software industry of work was killing him. In the sports industries and in athletics, I find it fascinating because I don't think we would treat our athletes, those that we hold on pedestals a little bit more, the same way. I don't think we would just kill them with lots of extra hours and ask them to go without sleep. Speaking of sleep, Wieden Kennedy actually has rooms and beds you can sleep at, as if people actually want to spend their nights sleeping at work and not go home. I think they look at it in the positive light as, oh, we've got beds for you if you want to take naps and sleep. And the downside is people actually spend the night there because they're working themselves to death. And so, in the athletics, our most premier world athletes, we would never deprive them of sleep and heap stress on them and ask things of them that we know are going to really burn them out and break them down because they wouldn't be able to perform well. If we withheld sleep from Steph Curry and just added a lot of stress, unnecessary stress on him, I think it's pretty obvious he's not going to perform well. You may know who this is? Simone Biles. Yes, same thing. I mean, the way that we treat our athletes and the care and the health and the food that we're able to provide for them so they can perform well is amazing. Why don't we do that for our workforce? Why don't we treat our workforce and our creatives and people in every industry with that kind of care and that kind of thought? What happens when life does get too stressful? What happens when the health part and the self-care part falls apart? Do you think it might affect performance? I think we have a really good case study that happens, unfortunately, very publicly to show what happens in those sorts of scenarios. And then last, imagine your doctor. Imagine depriving your doctor of sleep and not giving them a good diet and asking them to sleep nights after nights at work. Wait, I think that happens. And then put them in the operating room and ask them to operate on you. I mean, what are we doing? I can't understand the lack of care and the lack of health and the lack of, in some ways, to get really hippy-dippy here, the lack of love we give to so many different careers and professions. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story because I'm hoping it'll add some context to your own lives, wherever you're at, if you're creative-minded or entrepreneurial spirited. I grew up in a small town in Albany, Oregon, born and raised in Oregon, live in Portland now. And I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family, not super healthy, some abuse, some kind of just say bad abusive stepfathers. My biological father was a drug addict his whole life and ended up contracting HIV through drug use and hasn't made many very good choices in his own life. My mother had her own demons and ended up later in life basically drinking herself to death, and she died a few years ago. And so a lot of the dynamics, as you can imagine, me growing up, really sat with me in a not so positive way and left me wondering how to do life in many ways and definitely how to interact with people. As I grew up and grew older, the way I'm wired was that I was going to learn by reverse engineering how to do life, by knowing what not to do. And as I started imagining my own family and my own children, it became very clear to me what I didn't want to be, what I didn't want to do, and what I did want to do. Fast forward into the graduating from college and going into the workforce, I encountered some unfortunate behaviors in a lot of companies, just like I described. So I ended up going into some creative roles, strategic marketing and digital marketing, PR for some various companies and ad agencies and creative places. And I experienced what I described earlier as far as the expectation just to work. And if you put more work in, then you'll accomplish a lot more for the company, contribute to the bottom line. And I also encountered a lot of bad bosses, people who had a lot of self-interest, didn't care about me that much, they just wanted to see my butt in the chair getting stuff done. I didn't like it very much. And so kind of similarly in my childhood, I started imagining by reverse engineering what I wanted to do and started dreaming about what I would do if I was able to have my own organization and my own team of people to do things. So about 7 years ago, I started a creative agency. I was specialized in marketing. It's called Marmoset, and as I mentioned earlier, we're based in Portland, Oregon. And I started imagining what it would be like to actually care for people and actually make the emphasis on their lives and their well-being and their health more important than worrying about the work they're doing, how many hours they're working, how often, and how long they're in their chairs. This is a snapshot of Marmoset, and I show you this just to give you a little bit of something in your mind's eye. This is a ritual we do once a week, and actually it looks a little different now as we're up to about 50 people, where we sit once a week and actually talk with one another and listen to music, and we bring in guests from the community, sometimes from nonprofits, sometimes from some of the bands and artists and musicians that we work with, sometimes some of our creative clients, so we can learn about them and hear them and learn how we interact and the role we play in the entire ecosystem. 7 years later, we bootstrapped this thing and done it all ourselves. And we're up to about 50 folks, and I think we're on pace to do a lot of revenue, somewhere in the realm of $15 million. And I say that just to kind of give you an idea of the scope, and also the most important statistic or number I will throw at you is 6 weeks. 6 weeks is the average amount of PTO that our staff takes, each person. And then we have people that take more and a few people that take less. But the point is we have unlimited paid time off because I don't think there should be a limit on self-care and getting out of the office and getting away from work. In fact, the guiding principle is that as long as you are performing at a high level while you're at work, and as long as when you're not there, you plan it really well with your team and with your colleagues so that everything's covered and no balls are dropped, then to the point where we maybe almost don't even notice you're gone because you planned it so well, then I want you to take as much time as you need, as much time as you want. And what I've found in 7 years is it works. Like, we can have a lot of people gone as long as we're being thoughtful and strategic about how we're covering the responsibilities and our client work, and we continue to soar year by year. I think our smallest year-over-year growth has been 40%. So my playbook is what I want to share with you, just so you can get a little more insight as to some things you might be able to use. I try to share these stories. My hope and my dream is that we'll be able to share these stories and have other employers, other leaders take on some of these ideas and be able to really focus on care for their staff instead of a lack of trust and just a desire to have people work more hours and get more done. So one of, in addition to unlimited paid time off, another thing we do is we have creative days. And what I mean by that is once a quarter, everybody's required to take a creative day. It's a full paid day off where we just want you to go away, get outside of our walls, and go do something that refills your creative cup. So if you work in the tech space or emerging technology space or in the creative industry, what you can experience, what many people have seen experience, is you get so burnt out on doing that work that when you do have free time to go do your own thing, you're often so over it, tired and worn out from it that you don't want to do that creative thing that would typically be maybe your superpower. And so we want to carve out time and make sure that there is some reverence given to those things. And so once a quarter, one day, to be honest, it probably isn't enough, but it's where we're at right now. One day, all you have to do is tell us what you're going to do, because I like to see intention on that, because I think it helps get it done. Tell us what you're going to do, what you dream about doing on that day. And then when you come back after doing it, you have to send an all-company email, just very briefly, a paragraph or two saying what you did. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it indifferent? And ideally share a little piece of that. So here's what Alex, he's on our music supervision team. He helps pick music and songs for some of our clients. And this was that all-company email. It says, "Hey gang, I just had my creative day last Friday and I've been really enjoying some time at home to create things and get real domestic, like with this winter weather. On Friday, I spent most of the day working on music, getting to focus both on more commercial-oriented work, which he does as a side hustle, but also started a track for the sake of creating, which I will share." And attached to this email were 2 sound recordings that he made, songs, and both of them were just really outstanding. And he shared a couple other artifacts I'll show you on the next slide. He says, I spent a good chunk of my Friday also working on making little cups and bowls. I've been trying to make them look as non-lumpy as possible. Let me tell you, it's really hard without a pottery wheel. Late in the evening, I played a show with Kyle Morton at the Old Church. They're in a band. Alex is in a band called Typhoon that has some notoriety at the Old Church, where he played most of his songs off the newly released solo record. Thanks to the Marmo Gang, Thanks to Marble Gate, who was there coming out to see them. All in all, it was a great holiday break to recharge. I really had a great creative day to hunker down and spend some time doing the things that make me really happy. Thanks for listening, and happy to be back in the office. And these are the attachments. There's this little bowl that he's trying to make less lumpy. And there's the show. I guess Alex is on the far right corner playing drums. We need to be doing more of this, and the satisfaction and the happiness that it brings. And I've got an email inbox full of these emails as they keep rolling in, is tremendous. So this is my message, is let's take a holistic approach to life and to work. Some people like to put them in different silos and cylinders and say, well, I've got my work life and I've got my real life, and we've got this thing called work-life balance, and I think that's a bunch of crap. I think actually we should be aiming for work-life imbalance. It should not be balanced. Now, I know the unfortunate reality of the work in America is most of us spend more of our awake hours at work than we do with the ones we love or doing the things we enjoy. And that's unfortunate. Hopefully there's some change to be made there. But if we're going to actually, if that's going to be the state of the union, even if it wasn't, let's take a holistic approach and think about all of our hours and all of our days. Along those lines, a few other things that we do that have been really helpful is just communication. So we have these things. This is getting kind of business nerdy now, and forgive me if that sounds funny, but we do these things called huddles. And so every morning we have a stand-up huddle. They last about 10 minutes. Every team does them individually, and along the lines of care, and companies, and organizations, and leaders, and colleagues, and coworkers caring about each other is really communicating well and knowing how everybody's doing. And so these we call them 922s because they happen at 9:22 every morning. I know that's a funny time, but the funny time is what you remember. If it was 9:30, you forget. And so they're 9:22. They take about 10 minutes for a group of, say, 3 to 9 people to go around. And this is what we talk about. The first thing you say is your temperature. And we started big, but we boiled it down to just a number. So, and we use it kind of like the temperature outside. And so let's say that 75 to 80 is kind of a perfect temperature for most people. And so if you show up to the huddle and the first thing you say is, I'm at 75 degrees, then we automatically know you're good. We don't have to have a lot of dialogue, talk. We just know you're good. If you come in and you say it's about 100 degrees and you're having a hard time, then very quickly, with not a lot of words, pretty efficient, we know you're having a hard time. That gives us an opportunity to follow up and say, what's going on? You're having a hard time, can I help? And listen, hear what's going on. But your whole team is able to actually sync up on that. The second thing we do is a gratitude. So everybody shares something that they're grateful for. It could be your drive or your bike ride to work. It could be what you had for dinner last night. It could be the time you spent with your children before bedtime the night before. It could be anything. It could be something at work. It could be work-related. Oftentimes it's not. But getting that gratitude gets everybody firing on positivity and on the right things and on goodness, which is sometimes challenging in work environments. Work is not always easy. The next thing we talk about is your most important thing for the day. Then if you have any challenges for the day. We like to ask, are there any crises or crises on the horizon? It's a good question to ask. That way you can see things coming before they're on top of you. And usually people just say no crisis, which is good. You mentioned if you have any out of office coming. And then the last thing you do is you have an opportunity for a personal share. And that could be anything. My share yesterday in my huddle was that I went for a run in the morning, and it was really, really hard because it was 108 degrees that day. In the morning it was probably like 80. And we have air quality problem right now that is actually a little bit worse than we have going on here in Missoula. And so running when it was that hot and with that kind of trouble breathing, it was hard. So I just shared with my team. I had a hard time on my run this morning. It kind of sucked. Sometimes people might share if they were losing some sleep. They might share something good. But it's just an opportunity. It's optional. It's an opportunity just to share something personal so we can all get to know more about each other. Again, it's a holistic approach to life. There's a lot of other tricks and things we do to make sure that we are in tune and we're caring for one another. As leaders, it's hard to have a structure where you can really care for everybody. It's hard to check off a list or have a huddle or something for everything. And so as leaders, I've really empowered everybody to get to know everyone on their staff and everyone on their teams. And so every leader has a one-on-one every other week, like a 20 to 30-minute check-in, where you talk a little bit about work and see what's going on, what's good, what's hard. But we also ask about their personal lives and say, what's going on in your life? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Where are you living? And What are you doing for fun? Just so you can get to know them a little bit better. Because if you know your people well, those you're spending a lot of time with, then you're able to care for them and interact with them a little bit more. Those sorts of things are really helpful. It also gives you an opportunity to be a help or a support in a time of crisis or a time of need. For instance, I recently had an employee text me from out of town. She was back in St. Louis for some reason, and she said one of my best friends who's had cancer and has been battling through chemotherapy just died, and she was devastated. But she wanted to let me know because she knew that it was going to be hard for her to figure out how to get back home. And I responded with do whatever it takes to get there. Take all the time you need. Any ticket, change fares, whatever it is, I'll reimburse you for all of it. You have to spend gas, rent a car, whatever it takes to get back there. Just put in the reimbursement. We don't even have to talk about it. And that's the things I'm looking for all the time. I heard through checking in with one of my leaders that one of their staff people was having a hard time because their transmission or something was out in the car. And it's a pretty big deal. It's like $1,000 or $2,000 fix. But when I thought about it, and I knew numbers, and I know what our budgets are, I said, let's take care of that. They were waiting. They were going to wait until a mid-year profit sharing bonus. And I said, no, let's take care of that right now. Let's do it. One time I heard that somebody was getting some sort of physical therapy that wasn't covered by insurance. And they were having a hard time justifying going, and so they were considering not going because insurance didn't cover it. So let's take care of that. And it helps to have money in the bank and to be a successful company where you have that sort of thing. But I think it doesn't have to always take money. It's just being aware of what's going on in people's lives so you can intervene and take care of it. We have rituals. I showed you the listening hour. We gather once a week at 12:30 on Tuesdays. It's the one time where everybody in the company gets in the same room and we look each other in the eyes for an hour, and we bring in guests and things like that. But there's a ritual, getting to know people. You look people in the eyes, you see them. You don't get siloed away in different rooms and lose track of what's going on. We also do it once a quarter. We go off-site. We show all of the financials. We share what every team is doing. We talk about benefits. We ask people, what do you like right now that's going on in this company, and what's hard? What do you not like? Are there any benefits? Are there any processes or policies that we can improve? And we listen, and we do it. The worst thing that can happen to me in a situation like that is have people not speak up and not share, because it doesn't feel safe, and they're not trusted. And so, I'm fortunate. People tell me what's wrong with the company, and it's hard. They'll tell me, hey, we're paying for 80% of our health benefits. It'd be really nice if you paid for 100% of it. And I have to say, I hear you, and I receive that. We'll work on that. We just laid out a bike benefit. So if you bike to work, I don't know if it's like 15 days within a month, then we'll give you a $100 stipend. We have a lot of a health and wellness benefit. It's another one. I think it's $40 or $50 a month, as long as you show us you're doing something, a dance class or aerobics class or yoga or anything. As long as you show us you're doing it, we'll reimburse you for it. And that's looking at the holistic approach and really working to care for these people. That's pretty much all I have to tell you about today. The main thing is I just want to present it as a case study. Like I'm here to stand here before you and show and tell you that I have a young company, a new company, a fast-growing company, a very successful company. I say that with all modesty. And we're doing it by really caring for people, giving them time away, not asking them to work harder, but actually saying that working hard and burning yourself out is really overrated. And there's actually some ways and things you can do to mitigate that and to care for your people and to actually just have a better life and do more good. Love more, fear less. It's not just a good thing to say and a good thing to do with your personal relationships. Believe it or not, it's actually good business too. Thanks.
That was awesome. I want to have a creative day, and I'm going to instate that at the Launchpad. So awesome. We need that. Paul, I saw him earlier. We're going to do that, right? My boss. Okay, so quickly before we close, we will need to kind of run our way out of here, but films tonight. We have a 6 p.m. Film called A Place Sort Of by Andy Smetanka, and that film is about Missoula. So if you love the uniqueness of Missoula and its absurdities, I think this film is for you. 7 p.m. Roxy Lester Leaks, made by the director of the Roxy, Mike Steinberg, and it's self-described as a campy, fun, weird short film that is a metaphor for the creative process. At 8 p.m., we have Valley Uprising with Barry Thompson, the Emmy Award-winning Valley Uprising. So if you liked what you saw on his reel, please make sure you go to Roxy at 8 p.m. And then finally, before we leave, how are we on time? Okay, we've got 5 minutes. So what I'd love for you to do is to take out your phone or your journal, whatever you've brought with you today that you've been taking notes on or snapping photos with or anything like that, quickly, really fast. You see shiny lights out there. And then with that, if you can take 1 minute to write down one thing that refreshed your perspective over the last 2 days, one thing that was really meaningful, insightful, or that gave you inspiration over the last 2 days. And I'll just give you a quick minute to do that. Okay, and while you're wrapping that up, the next thing that I'd love for you to do is write down how you think you can use that in your life on Monday morning. How would that be applicable? Or maybe it's not Monday, maybe it's this weekend, maybe it's at night, maybe it's something that you can apply to your everyday, your daily grind, your after work experience, whatever it is that really resonated with you, how can you use that? And I'll give you another minute for that. While you're wrapping that up, the reason that I ask you to do that is research really shows when you write something down, it sticks with you. So thank you for bearing with me, and I hope that you really do take something like that that was inspiring with you over the next year or so until our next LBCon. So if you don't mind, please jump up from your seats, head to Brooks and Brown, where we'll have our DJ Double Dip, Flippin' Mad tunes, and then also make sure if you want to have a side conversation, if you can carry it out the doors, that would be so helpful. So that'll be 4 to 7. Don't forget the films, and thank you so much for your participation in this year's Last Fest conference. Really grateful.